I like to start these things with a quote, and today I have talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. Michael Jordan. And today with us, we have Matt Uber, the founder of Spinwheel Sales, a seasoned sales expert who has made it his mission to revolutionize the way businesses approach their sales strategies. With years of hands-on experience and a key eye for market trends, Matt identified a critical gap in the industry, the need for personalized sales coaching and virtual assistant training. That's a huge gap, Matt. That's a
Yeah.
huge gap.
It has been a huge gap for sure. For sure. Yes.
Now, before we dive into a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of notes that I want to talk today, can you tell me a little bit more about your journey? How did you start where you started and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So I guess the best path for me to do would just be start kind of in school. School was never the path for me. In middle school, high school, I was always a kid that a lot of the students thought I was really good in school, but my grades didn't necessarily reflect that. I always had, I would say, and I would say my teachers would probably say, a bad case of ADD. Man, if you put something in front of me that I was passionate about, man, I was great at learning it and knowing it. But man, if I did not have an interest in it, you couldn't get me to care at all. And so in school, I got through it. I accomplished it. But once I got through my senior year of high school, I knew that was the last day I was ever going to go to school again in the traditional sense. I had no vision of going to college, and I went straight into professional life. The first 5 to 7 years, I just kind of took a lot of collections jobs, and I did really well. I mean, right out of high school, I was making about twice as much as my mother had ever made in her career right out of high school doing collections. Um, and about 5 years into that, I decided to take a job into sales. So I was around 24 at the time. I took this job where I was selling direct TV in Sam's Clubs and in Best Buys. And it was a really humbling experience, but I took that job because it was an opportunity for me to be taught how to functionally sell. The next step after you learn how to sell was to how to make other people around you better. Once you're able to do that, you were given an opportunity to run and open up your own office and have your own team. And from then you could build and scale. And then once I saw that opportunity, I attacked that with an absolute full force of my ability. And within 6 months, I got promoted to run my own office. Within about a year and a half, I had opened up 5 different offices and I had about 30 people that had been working for me in my organization. And just the sky was the limit at that point. And from there, everything else I did in my professional career was all foundationally built around what I learned and what I was taught in that 100% commission job, standing in the front of Sam's Club, stopping everybody who came in for a 15 pound of chicken wings, asking them what they want to do with their TV service, right? So I moved into the software space and the automotive industry about 10 and a half years ago, 11 years ago. Started off entry level, had an opportunity at a certain company called Dealer On to grow pretty rapidly. Within 8 months, I got promoted to be a regional manager and had the ability to start helping people around me while still performing and being a top individual contributor. About a year later, I got promoted where I had an opportunity to start bringing in some of the innovation and a couple of new ideas. I created and developed an inside sales team, which is something they had done about 3 times before and never had the success of being able to accomplish that. I also built an independent division just based off some experience I had in the past. And after a year of doing that, I was promoted to be the head of sales, vice president of sales. We scaled that sales organization from 12 people to over 60 people in that time frame. And that's kind of really where I found my bread and butter in the industry, which was building a lot of inside sales teams instead of bringing in and hiring a bunch of super veteran sales guys who already have their ideas. I really found a niche in finding people that had really either never done sales or very early in their sales career that I had an opportunity to teach and train, develop up front. Every organization I've built and or worked with in the past or since then has been everybody starts at the bottom. Everybody earns the chance to grow. Everybody has the equal chance to grow as you perform and you do that. And that's something that has both helped me my team, and I think the companies that I've worked with, show them how to build a growth from within organization, and the results through that process have been fantastic.
Now, the journey that you explained and that you showed us, it's a lot of joining a team, having very minimal structure, if you will, and then building a sales team and growing sales teams. It's not just growing sales numbers and hitting the targets; it's growing the sales team as well. And then you discover your bread and butter, like you said. Now, what you are focusing on, I feel like it's probably the most difficult position in a company because you're taking someone that has no sales experience, probably has predefined beliefs about what sales is, and you need to start breaking one by one to show them the path and how this can really work for their life. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about what are the first beliefs that you got to break when someone comes in and you're like, look, this will be fantastic. Let me show you how this whole thing works. What are the first steps you do when you have a new person and you're helping them to grow in sales?
Well, I think the most important step in the whole process is how you recruit and how you interview. I'm a guy that lays out the interview process very, very clearly during the interview process, because I know that what I'm about to put somebody through is intentionally not an easy thing. I am looking to weed out the people who can't handle what I'm going to ask them to do. So in the interview process, what I look for three primary things in the interview process. Number one, I look for somebody who's mentally tough. I think if you're doing sales, and more importantly, any type of cold call, prospecting, introductory appointment setting aspect, which is where most of my team members start, you have to have the ability to take a high volume of rejection, and you have to be willing to have a short memory and attack the next opportunity. So I really look for that. So I've got a lot of really unique questions to identify mental toughness and the ability to survive that aspect. Secondarily, I look for somebody who's coachable. Now, the way you interview is very important because you can ask anybody, are you coachable in an interview process? Everybody in the interview process is coachable. It's amazing, right? So being able to determine and distinguish who's actually coachable is one of the things that is really, really important. And then I would say the hardest thing for me to learn how to identify in the interview process, but I would say also likely the most important part, which is somebody who's self-aware. And if you don't know where your strengths are and or where your weaknesses are, if you don't know how people view you and judge you, then even if you're the most coachable person in the world, you don't know what to get coaching on. You don't know what you need help on. And you might be solving A when X is your problem, or a vice versa. So I look for people who have those three things. I think that the most important step is, number one, make sure you're recruiting the people who have the right mindset. I also look for people who are growth minded, who are motivated by growth. And I try to eliminate people who are motivated by money, because I think when you know your bigger purpose, when you know your bigger motivation outside of a paycheck, then the money comes through the motivation of other things that are more important.
That's very true. Like not just salespeople, I think even businesses, they forget that, like CEOs and business owners, they forget that money is the byproduct. Like it doesn't just happen and you have this number and you're just like going for it. Like it happens because it's a byproduct of all the stuff that you got to do. So when you have this interview and you're kind of recruiting new people, you go through the three steps: mental toughness, coachable, and self-aware. Have you seen some sort of a X factor that, you know what, if you don't have two of these, but you have this X factor, it will work. It will still work because I've seen it. Then 2 or 3 years later, that person really develops in a strong salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, look, out of those three, the most important part is resilience. And that's the mental toughness side. I believe that, I've simplified the sales coaching side down to three things. I've simplified the coaching side down to a successful day or a successful week either comes back to your pitch, your pace, or your attitude. And we can go back to any part of your day, your week, your month, your career, and we can say, when it was going well, was it your pitch? Was it your pace? Or was it your attitude? And I was actually having a conversation with one of these executives that I coached yesterday, and that was a big part of our emphasis of our coaching session yesterday, was around just simplifying the conversation. This person was having a lot of issues with their team focusing on a lot of things outside of their control, focusing on a lot of negative things. And having this executive be able to come back and keep her team focused on pitch, pace, or attitude is what I've found is the most simplistic way to keep people focused on. Now, I would tell you 90% of the time, it's attitude. It's not the pitch. The pitch is something that you can teach scripting. You can teach the words, right? Pace that's the work ethic, right? Some people have it, some people don't. Typically, the only thing you can do as a leader, which is know their motivation and coach them towards their motivation to help them increase strong work ethic if they don't have it. But the attitude part is the biggest variable. And you've heard that phrase, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I couldn't agree with that more. I could teach you the exact same script that if you say it with confidence, energy, enthusiasm, passion, man, all of a sudden the customer on the other end receives that message significantly different than if you're pitching it like you're Eeyore or something, If you're just, oh, me, this is not going to happen. Like, if the way you say it, the mindset you have, I think is the most important part. So for me, that's what I found is the biggest variable.
Got it. And it's interesting that you said you have them by week, so you can see when it goes well in that week. You do those three things. Now, when someone, I'm assuming that when a startup is building their sales team versus a well-established organization that is improving, or like we've never had a successful internal sales team, that strategy is probably different. What are the differences when someone calls in and says, look, we have one sales guy, probably the co-owner of the company, versus we have a CSO and we've tried this and it failed? What are your strategies to build a successful sales team in those two scenarios?
Yeah. So first thing I do is I have the team figure out what their law of averages is in a sales environment, right? Depends on what I'm coaching them on. If I'm coaching them on how to get better results out of their sales team, I need to know as many metrics as possible, because to me, the metrics tell me where the coaching needs. So for instance, I'm teaching a cold calling team, or I'm building a cold calling team. Historically, I know, and I've taught this in more than a dozen different industries, 50 cold calls in a business-to-business environment equals 10 connections, equals one set demo. On average, about 75% of the demos show. On average, 20 to 25% of those demos that show from a cold call end up buying. On average, what's your average sale price? What's your average sales cycle? All of those numbers are important for us to know, because when we can understand those numbers, now we know what screws need to be tightened. And you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't, how many people have no clue what those numbers are. They just sell, and the results happen if they happen, and if they don't, they have no clue where it is. So I think that structure of understanding what's working, what's not, the numbers tell the answers to where the coaching needs to be provided. And based off of those numbers is where we identify what we provide coaching and or fixing a problem.
In the numbers that you're showing are, for most people, I would say they were like, that's low. I thought I need to make like 1,000 cold calls to get like 2-3 close clients. Maybe like I'll do like 1,000 and I'll get like 10 bookings, and out of the 10 I'll close maybe 1 or 2. You're shooting with 50. You're starting with like 50, and then you break it down 10 interest at 75%, show up on the demo call, and that process. Is that because of the lack of knowledge that someone would have, that they shoot up so high in the beginning and try to figure out at a later date?
Yeah. So, I teach a concept, the quality versus quantity, volume versus value. A lot of business owners I'll meet with, they'll tell me, I want these cold callers making 150, 200 calls a day. Cool. All right. What do you have in place that allows them to do that? And the answer of that problem is most executives, most leaders don't have a database to call off of. They don't have a research database that tells me if I'm a client, a customer trying to call into a business, it doesn't tell me, here's the decision makers, here's all of the decision makers, here's the importance of their role in the company, here's their direct number, here's the call line. Now, if a company has that, and my sales rep or the sales rep who's calling doesn't have to think, they just pick up the phone and call, then yeah, making 100 to 200 calls a day is fine. But in most companies I've worked at, what I have my sales team do, which is own the database as well. And so they're going to manage 150 to 200 active accounts in their prospecting pipeline. I've got a 10-stage cadence that they follow, which is where 5 calls and 5 emails happen in a 2-week span. But I require them to go in and do all the research. Go find out, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? If this decision maker doesn't answer, do we go to this person? Do we go to that person? And we make everything out of every call so that when I pick up that phone, I've got all of my I's dotted and all my T's crossed, and I can make the most effective call every time I make an effort. So for me, I tell them, it's up to you. Your database prepared for 150 calls? Great, we'll do it. Because it's not a time thing, it's a results thing, and it's what do you need the team to do. And in most cases, especially in the automotive industry, these startup companies or these younger companies, they don't have a database, and even the veteran companies have a database, but it's really bad data.
It's wishful thinking. Some really burned opportunities that you just call and no one picks up, or the numbers are completely wrong. And it's something that someone piled, maybe like an intern, and they're like, we scraped this data, and here you go. And you're like, man, this is not going to work out. It's interesting that you're looking to start with the data, because I've talked to so many people and no one looks at the data because they feel like they can just kind of scrape it last moment. And it's the sales guy sucks. The sales guy, he's doing the dials, but his delivery is bad. And it's interesting that you're looking at the database is the first point, because the training, I'm confident, in my team, I'm confident. You need to have your database. And you said even veteran companies don't have the databases. Now, when you look at a large organization, they have some structure and they keep outsourcing because they've never been successful building, and you've done that in the past. What are the first things that you say for them to look at? Like, here are the problems that we need to resolve first, because you're outsourcing, it can be built internally.
Yeah, and I just try to find out what you're trying to accomplish by this goal. Is it that you just want to make more sales? Is it just you want to make more appointments? Do you want to improve the success and the strength of your business in whole? Like, I'm not trying to answer those questions for them. My job is just to identify their problems and then try to help provide a solution. Some people just want more appointments. Cool, we'll get you appointments. Now, does your team know how to pick those conversations up? Do they know how to take a cold call? You'd be surprised how many companies I've met with that are used to only dealing with hand raisers, and they close at a 70 to 75% rate. And they're like, man, everybody I talk to buys this thing. And I'm like, I'm going to give you a news flash. When the team starts cold calling people who don't know your name, who've never heard of you, who are not in the market to buy, and they sell an appointment to you, how you pick that customer up and how you sell that customer is far different than somebody who knows you and who's looking to change and who's in the market to change and who have selected you as one of the couple people that they're going to have a meeting with. It's a completely different conversation. Now, I can just get my team to get you a bunch of appointments, but if you don't know how to then take that appointment, position your product properly to the audience, and close, then it's probably not going to be beneficial. Would you like me to help your team and or you, or provide you somebody who can actually present your product in an effective way from a cold call?
That's right. It's a very different approach. And even when I do my the LinkedIn outreach, I try to explain to people, look, they have no idea who you are. And I try to walk them through the TAM pyramid, like 3% looking ready, buy, blah, blah. And then probably 70% have never heard of you. We're just introducing the idea for the first time. But that is also, I would say, a great success, because no one thought that they needed an Apple Vision Pro. And all of a sudden, a bunch of people bought it. So I'm like, same concept. When you're putting these positions, it feels like with time you realize, look, I can really train and I can really coach and I can make a big impact. And you started then going with virtual assistants, remote workers across the world, and you try to put them through your training. What are the steps that you take when you're on a global market? How do you look for that right fit, those things that are outside of the criteria of a person? Do you look for things like geographical location, time zones? Is English a second language in that culture? Are there other things that you put the pieces to the puzzle together to be like, yeah, this virtual assistant will work for this business?
Yeah, so my outsourced sales staff, and I've got a sales staff, and I've got a team of virtual assistants, and I think I have about 400 to 500 virtual assistants that I have in my network. I have on average of 100 people that apply to be a virtual assistant in my company every single day. I have everybody who applies fill out a 23-point assessment. And that's an assessment that they fill out upfront. It's before it ever comes to me. I've got a whole recruiting team who handles kind of the sourcing and the filtering of candidates. Part of that, as I live in America and most of the clients I work with are in America, that's really important, which is the ability to speak English in a decently effective way. Some clients I have more of a concern about how strong the accent are. Some clients I have more of a concern on what type of accent, is in regionally, locally, where that person is. I would say more than 70% of my virtual assistant team, both on the sales and the admin staffing side, are sourced from Latin America. Most of the clients I talk to kind of prefer the bilingual ability. Also, they feel that they like the accent coming from Latin America a little bit better, and that it just has a more organic feel to, like, I'm in Texas. I've got a lot of clients in Florida, California. They just kind of hear that more often, so they feel more comfortable with that accent. But I let the client let me know. I've got resources and access to wherever they want to get people from, as long as they fit in that 23-point inspection. Then I put them into a whole training program. Most of my virtual assistants right now are being leveraged in our real estate industry. So we've got a complete self-guided training program that we put everybody through to get certified on that, which has been an incredibly effective process and an efficient process. So I've got a whole team of trainers, a whole team of coaches that are all behind the scenes, and a team of recruiters and stuff. And that's really helped me identify the right people who fit certain categories, so that when I've got a client, I've got a trained, ready to go staff that's already kind of fitting those boxes.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think that Central South America, the Latin American continent, really started to develop as the infrastructure was developing in each country. And most of my staff is from Central South America as well. And for me, it was the time zones. So I am close to Toronto. I live in Oakville, very close to Toronto. If someone is, Seattle, then I can have someone that is from Chile. It will work. If someone is in BC, again, Brazil, same person will work. And the time zones were very important for me. And also then when we started looking at bilingual, North Africa, so Morocco and Tunisia, French is a second language, and it works really well. And then once you start expanding, you can start to see that that approach it is very successful if you manage it properly. Now, I say there's a big if. What's the structure that you see that you like? This is the successful structure to bring in a virtual assistant in your sales staff, because again, it's a person. It's not just like a VA. It's a real person. They're looking for a job. They want to be successful. What is the structure and the setup that you need in a business to succeed?
Are you asking me the structure of the business to succeed with the virtual assistant, or the actual candidate, the virtual assistant, what I look for in that person?
The structure that a business needs in order to start bringing virtual assistants.
I provide all the structure. So when a company hires me, they pay me. They don't buy. They don't pay for a virtual assistant, and I just say, "Hey, here's a virtual assistant." I think that's an effective way to do it. So for me, they pay me as a service, and part of my service includes the virtual assistant, which I pay the virtual assistant as an employee of mine. Mm-hmm. In that, I provide a coaching staff and a managerial staff that's also available with my service. So whether you get one virtual assistant or whether you get 10 virtual assistants, you're still going to be given a coach and a manager that keeps the virtual assistant fully accountable. Every one of my virtual assistants log into Discord every morning. We have them all into a WhatsApp conversation with the client. And both myself and my business partner are also included in every single one of those conversations. So when I take on a client, I don't just say, "Hey, here's a virtual assistant that I found and maybe I trained and it's your employee now." I actually want to provide the assurance of performance through coaching, managing, and I also offer what is so important to a lot of my clients. I offer a staffing guarantee as well. So if that VA doesn't fit isn't culturally right, isn't performing correctly, or they decide they just want to go do something else, then we replace that VA at no cost. And it's not as big of a problem because we still have my infrastructure of myself, my partner, my coach, and my manager that knows and understands that business so that we can continue to scale it. Now, in regards to what I look for in a client, and I make sure that my client knows this, that the objective of my company is to be able to develop my virtual assistants to be the future leaders within my organization. So them working for my client is their path to show me that there's somebody that can be a future leader. I've got a lot of structures behind the scenes that the client's not seeing about them coaching and training and developing other new virtual assistants and being a leader and showing that. And I let my client know that after 90 days, this person could be eligible for a promotion and growth within my organization. And if they are so good to do that, then obviously we'll make sure that we replace them with somebody that we see as being as good. But that's the big differentiator I make for my employees, which is my objective of having you come in is, yes, having you become a virtual assistant to serve as a client, but more to understand how to be a very, very great virtual assistant so that ultimately you can lead and run a team yourself. My goal of my team is to 10x in size in the next 2 years. The only way I do that is not hiring a bunch of strangers off the street. It's by developing the people that work for me today.
Yeah, development is it's very hard. It's easier said than done. You have to have proper structures. You have to have accountability. Now, how does that look like for you? Do you have like a structure for accountability for the VAs that you bring in that have to go through the whole process?
Yes. So look, I told the story in the beginning part, my introduction. I said, hey, remember when I was talking about working at this company selling direct TV? They taught you how to sell. They taught you how to duplicate yourself. They taught you how to lead. Every company and organization I've ever been in an opportunity to run and do that, that's exactly that same structure. That's where I learned pitch, pace, and attitude. And it's just stuck with me because every foundational part of who I am and what I am was learned in that environment. So I want to empower everybody around me to be able to be the best of them that can be. Now, that's why I said I go back to the recruiting side. I go back to the interviewing process and making sure that I identify the right people who are there for the right reasons, who are motivated by the right things, that are in alignment with what I do. That's the most important thing. If I bring somebody in who doesn't have the same goals and motivation, then I'm teaching them to throw with their left hand when they're right-handed. So I just have to make sure that I'm recruiting in and bringing in the people who have the right motivation. And what I've found, probably not surprising to you, people outside of the US are hungry. They're hungry to make an impact. They're hungry to grow. They're hungry to develop. They're absolutely hungry. Like every person I have on my team is very, very motivated to have an opportunity to show me that they can be a future leader. They're very entrepreneur mindset, and I really feed that with my organization. I give them an opportunity for them to be a business partner of mine. I'm not looking for employees. I'm truly looking for business partners, and that's something that I offer every single one of my employees, is that we can go into business together and they can be a partner of mine with that.
That is I believe that's the method that law firms do it. If someone is very, very good, they make partner. You've seen it in the movie. There's a meeting. If this meeting goes through, I'll make partner. And it's I think it's the right way, because you want to support and you want to motivate. And it's not just about increasing targets and paychecks, but that purpose in life. And off camera, we talked a little bit about the purpose in life. You said that a year and a half ago, you had that kind of epiphany, aha moment of what is the purpose in your life and how that aligned with paychecks and money and business and how that changed. Can you share that story one more time of a year and a half ago, how that started?
Yeah, so I'm in a men's group with a bunch of like-minded men that are in through my church, and we were just having a conversation around, I don't remember the topic, but the topic basis to me was, somebody asked me, he's like, Matt, what do you think your mission is? What do you think your purpose is? And it was a throwaway comment to that person. And I actually told him a couple of weeks later, I was like, that was just a throwaway comment. But man, I went to battle with myself after that question hit me, because I didn't have the answer to it in my head. And man, I did a lot of inner thinking. I sat down with my wife. I really talked to her about that. And what I came to the conclusion of is at that point in time, I kept taking and accepting W-2 jobs that paid me really well, that had these really nice titles that were completely unfulfilling in my life. And if anybody ever heard of the idea of golden handcuffs, that's exactly the idea I was in. I had already had the idea of my business and already had been doing a part of my business, but just part-time, just half-ass. And when I found out and came to the realization of what I already knew, but I just had to convince myself this is the direction and this is my path to go, which my passion has always been developing and coaching other people. So the mission and what I was just talking about around taking people who have no experience, teaching and developing them all of the right ways to ultimately grow and become what they want to be within me. That's always what I've gotten the most out of. If anybody would say, hey, Matt, what are the couple of things you're most proud about in your career? I would say more than half of them are other people and what they've done with their career that I played a part in. I was not the whole part, but I played a part in it. And so that's really when I dove my focus, my business towards that. I was not only able to help significantly more companies and executives and leaders and owners be able to help their business, but I was more importantly to me able to really be able to grow my internal team that allows me to run towards my passion. And since I made that decision, man, my business has just blown up. And it's just when you have the focus on the things that don't have to do with money, like we just talked about, and you're working towards the things that you're passionate about, the things that are the thing you want to be remembered for, then all of a sudden it's far easier for you to put those 60, 70-hour weeks in because you're not working for a job, you're working for a passion. So
It's very true. And I think we go back to this one because it is very important. It's not just, nice to say, but it really is when the tough hits, those moments, the money just doesn't justify the suffering because the suffering is not like a day or two. It's weeks and weeks, maybe months. And that golden handcuffs, like I've been in those situations where they slap a bunch of contracts. You're like, I can't even be proud of my work. I can't even show it anywhere. I can't even mention it anywhere. Yeah, it's financially great, but that purpose, like what I really want to do, I can't even mention what I'm doing to another client that I know I can do the same thing. No connection, different geography, different industry, but I'm tied with these NDAs and all kinds of stuff like that.
yeah.
It's like I said, in those moments, I really feel like money just doesn't justify it. And
Yeah.
you said you discover your kind of purpose in life. How do you sharpen the axe so that all the time you are on top of the newest things, the most impactful things that you can develop and coach people?
I think it's important for you to surround yourself with people that are better than you. I think it's important for you to have mentors and coaches in your life, even though I identify myself as somebody who's a mentor and a coach. I think it's important for me to have people that were willing to challenge me and make sure that I'm being better. I mean, obviously, the most important person in my life to do that is my wife. She'll be able to, motivate me and believe in me. And she is, man, the amount of trust she's put into my decision making has been incredible. But she'll also, say, "Hey, Matt, looks like your belly, the belt's getting a little tighter around your waist. You might want to go to the gym a little bit more," type of thing. She can give me that motivation that nobody else could do. But I think it's also important to surround yourself with other people that have been through things in their career that you haven't. It's important to be around people that are willing to tell you things when you do things wrong. I look at a lot of these, like, whether it's celebrities or very successful people that have nothing but yes men in their life, and they never get challenged. They never get told no. They never get told that you're looking like an idiot. I think it's important to have people in your life that are willing to tell you, hey, you could be doing better, challenge you on, Matt, what is your purpose? Luckily, I have people like that in my life, both personally and professionally, that can help me sharpen those tools every day.
That's right. And it's good to have that partner, that someone that is your support. My wife plays a similar role, a little bit more, I would say, kind of on the concerning side. She will say, like, "Are you okay? Like, I see you're like dead exhausted. Like, I see that you're on the edge today. Like, is everything cool? Like, I don't want to get in arguments because I know it's tough days." And so she figured out that balance where today is a good day, or today I can see it's been tough. So tell me, like, what was happening? How many were you verbal punching back today? I'm like, yes, I was. Okay, good. So let's just go ahead and do something else. But uh, how do you build that mental resilience as a sales expert, so that it doesn't impact your personal life, your marriage, if you're a father, kids, and all that jazz?
Per pitch, pace, and attitude. Nothing else matters. Why complain about it if I can't change it? If I can't coach it out of myself, if I can't look back at myself and do the same coaching to myself than I would do to my employees? If I had a good day, if I had a bad day, can I change my pitch? Can I work harder? Or can I fix my attitude? It's one of those three things. So, that's something that I'm not a very emotional person. I think there's a lot of advantages to that in business. I don't carry things. I'm not a stressed out person. I don't focus on things I can't control. And if I can't change it, I don't worry about it. So I know that's a big problem for some people. It's not something that really spends a lot of time in my mind.
So it's mainly focusing on what I have control. I can fix that. I can change it. I can have an impact. And if I don't, I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to carry it with me. Therefore, it doesn't impact my personal life at all. I leave it and I'm done.
Yep. If I can't change it, I'm not going to focus on it. If I can change it, if I can get better at my skill, if I could work harder, or I can fix my confidence or my mentality around that, then that's something within my control. Outside of that, I can't. I can't control if a customer decides to go with a competitor. I can say, hey, could I have pitched it better? Could I have talked to more customers? Could I have maybe pitched it in a different way that could have connected with them more? I can look introspectively at how I could have done differently, but outside of that, I can't control the outcome. So I can just do everything I can to make sure I did my part.
And when it's a lot easier said than done. So it's something that it has to be developed, I think, with time, so that you
For
can
sure.
start separating that and leave it there, so that it doesn't impact your personal life. Now, if someone goes kind of shows interest and they're a young person and they want to get into sales, and you kind of walk them through all of your methods and processes, is there any time where you're like, look, in your downtime, read these 3 books. They're very good. They will make a massive impact in you being a great salesperson, but developing also stuff that is outside of this. Maybe mindset, maybe resilience, maybe getting better at the craft. Is there anything like that you would recommend to people?
Um, I'm the worst when it comes to read a book. I'm not going to read a book myself. So I'm not going to tell you to read a book. Now, I digest and listen to a lot of podcasts.
Mhm.
So I believe in that audio side of it more. There's definitely some people that I could recommend on that. And I would kind of do personal recommendations just based off of what I know about people and their philosophy. A guy I like to listen to a lot is a guy named Patrick Bet-David. I think that the way he handles certain things in business really speak to me. A lot of the things he says politically speak to me. And so I like listening to him. I think that he has a different way of thinking about things that I enjoy. A book that I did read, audio listen to it when I was out working out, was Jocko Willink. Forget the name of
Extreme
Extreme
ownership. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I recommend that. That's a book I had bought for quite a few of my leaders, which is, once again, don't blame your employees. Let's always look back and look at blaming yourself for the problem. If your team didn't succeed, it's your fault. What part of it did you own? Choose Your Enemies Wisely is a book that Patrick Bet-David wrote. I like that book. I think that finding your motivation and finding value in people that have not believed in you, or that have not that have thought you weren't there. I'm a competitive person. I come from a sports background. You read a quote about Michael Jordan. I think one of the things that he was better at than anybody else, which was finding or creating that fake bulletin board material to drive him to be more competitive than others. I think there's a lot of value in identifying that bulletin board material to help you push back or to grow. So those would be maybe a couple books that I would recommend for somebody to read if they are a leader. If not, I would say listen to some podcasts, listen to some people that think like you, but I would challenge you less to listen to people who think like you and listen to more people who don't think like you or think the opposite of you. Because to me, there's so much more you can learn in listening to people who disagree with you than people that agree with you.
I think there's a huge opportunity in that last sentence because a lot of people they enjoy this echo chamber. And off camera, we talked about like Andy Elliott that I've listened to his stuff. It's not my style, but I have listened to him, and I want to understand why is he so impactful for a lot of people. And then I will listen to Jeremy Minor, and it's a very different approach. But I would listen to both of them, and I will see which one works for me. But I'm like, there has to be something that I can take away, and that like for example, when we talk about Andy, I would say um, mental resilience, definitely motivation in any moment to be that hyped and to be able to do that. You can take something from that. Now, maybe like you said, pitch delivery, maybe that's not your style, then you switch it to someone else. But if you expose yourself to a lot of people, then you can also understand that it's not just one set, and you can then create your own. I always believe in being unique and create your own at the end of the day.
Yeah, like if we take those two examples you just mentioned, I can absolutely draw a lot of inspiration from Andy Elliott's focus around faith, family, fitness. Those are kind of his foundational aspects. I think he kind of leads more fitness, and the family and faith are in there too. But those are his three core aspects of everything he does. He thinks you wake up every day, you have a mission, you have a goal. One of the people I work with over at Worldwide BDC, he is directly tied to and speaks to Andy every single week. And he talks to me about his personal relationship we have with Andy. And Andy is the guy that you see Andy being. He is a really caring, really good dude who really challenges Jason, the guy that's my friend, to be a better guy and a better leader, a better husband, a better father, like he says, were you in the gym this morning at 6:30? So what he shows you is truly what he believes, and that's what he does. And there's a reason why he has such a large team standing behind him that believe in everything he does, because he is, in my opinion, a great example of a leader who walks the walk, doesn't tell you to do something that he's not going to do himself. And that's the leader I aspire to be. That's the leader I wake up every morning to say, whether it's in my professional life or my career, or whether it's for my two children, is if I ever expect my children to do something or my employees to do something, I better make sure they know that if I ask them to do it, I've not only done it, but I can do it better than them. So every part of my employees' jobs, every part of what I will ask my kids to do, I make sure that if I expect them to eat healthy and to go work out, I do that. And I am that. And in regards to Jeremy Minor, I absolutely personally agree with the psychology of his sales process far more than I do with the beating your chest Andy Elliott approach. I look at everything I say is said for a reason. Everything I ask to a client is done for a reason. And so I definitely resonate with the sales style of a Jeremy Minor. But I like the demeanor as a leader of Andy Elliott. So I can take something from every person and understand, why is that person inspirational to some? What can I learn from them? What can I discard from them? What can I steal and make my own? I genuinely think the best salespeople are not the most innovative people. They're the best strategic stealers and applicants of that stealing. And what I mean by that, it sounds bad, but if I can learn an elevator pitch from X, if I can learn to close from Y, if I can learn how to build relationships from Z, if I can learn the psychology of this from A, B, and C, then I can then learn how to apply those things. Now I've mastered the art of selling, because now I've learned all the different techniques and made them my own.
It's true. You have to work and make them your own, because there's a lot of I see there's a lot of cognitive dissonance. Like you see someone like Andy Elliott, you're like, I will never be that guy. And then you start to find flaws. Well, he's too aggressive. Well, I'm not going to wear short shorts. Well, I'm not in that industry. And you start building this cognitive dissonance because you're not looking at what he's telling you. Be strong, believe in your family, have faith, and all these other things I'm going to teach you. They're just methods. And if you really want to be a leader, you have people that are looking at you. You need to be strong in the hard times. And I'm just showing you tools and stuff that I've seen that it works for years and years. And also I'm showing you how to do sales. When you look at, again, the Jeremy amount of NAPQ questions and stuff like that, it's good of the psychology, because he's not talking about leadership. nothing in what he does is about leadership. It's just about how to take the call, what to say, how to handle objections. It's a very different approach. And I would throw in the mix of Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, where it's about negotiation because maybe Andy will show you how to be strong in those tough moments, and maybe Jeremy will tell you how to handle the objections. But then Chris Voss will talk about negotiation because when the contract is negotiated, the best advice that I took from listening to that audiobook was it's better to say no than to take a bad deal because you got to live with a bad deal. And I did that many times because I was like, it's going to work out. I see the red flags. It's going to work. And it's just going down a really bad path. Have you ever taken a bad deal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've accepted jobs at companies that didn't believe it, that didn't believe in me, that didn't believe in what I was doing, that didn't care about me, that I was just a number on a board. And I would say every single one of those things were a bad deal for me, or probably a bad deal for the company too. I can't stress enough to anybody listening to this who's in the potential idea of changing their career, changing their jobs, man, I can't stress enough. Grass is not always greener on the other side. And if you're changing jobs frequently and you're not looking at yourself first and saying, what could I do more to be the best employee, the best version of me within that company, then you're probably not doing the most inner work that you could be doing. But of course, I've taken bad deals. I've signed up customers that I knew were going to be a problem up front. They tell you exactly who they're going to be, but you get hungry to make that sale, to create that win, to conquer that battle. And you say, oh, I'll deal with that down the road, or that'll be somebody else's problem, but it's always your problem. So of course, yeah, I think any salesperson that is an aggressive, assertive, successful salesperson has probably oversold something they know they shouldn't have sold, not as in overpromise, but sold something they know they probably shouldn't have sold because it wasn't the actual outcome that was best for the client and or for the business, but you wanted to make the sale.
That's amazing. Now, Matt, I want to slowly but surely wrap it up here. If someone wants to start being a salesperson and they reach out to you, what are the first things you tell them? Like, look, if this is for you, what are the advice you will give to someone looking for it? Like, Matt, I want to be in sales. Am I cut out for this?
If you're asking that question, if you're saying, am I cut out for it? I mean, you probably know the answer to that question before you ask it. You got to just look back at yourself and know what you're looking for. Look, at the end of the day, sales to some people is the most horrendous job you could ever do. If you get uneasy about the idea of talking to people and building relationships and solving problems, if you don't like those things, then sales isn't for you. I think there's a very, very large misconception by bad salespeople who people think salespeople are people who convince you to do something that you shouldn't do. That is not a salesperson. That is a swindler. That is a con man. That's not a salesperson. To me, a salesperson has the ability to identify problems, ask questions in a way that makes the customer realize things they didn't realize about themselves. You then solve that said problem with your solution. And if you are able to do that, if you like the idea of helping people solve problems that they did not know that they had, if you like the idea of building relationships, and if you like the idea of making a lot of money, sales might be great for you. If you don't like that, then you'll never be good at sales and you'll never make money.
That's the gist of it, basically. If you really believe in those things, that's right. Now, Matt, if a company wants to get a hold of you, talk about to you about building their virtual assistant, outsourcing or consulting for building sales teams, how do people get a hold of you?
Look, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. You can text me directly. My number is 214-436-6968. You can email me. My email is matt@spinwheelsales.com. Any way you want. You can find me. I'm easy to get in touch with. I'm on LinkedIn, email, text me, call me, whatever you want. I'm available.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for the day. This was, I would say, high octane. This was amazing. There was a lot of great stuff, and I thank you for sharing all that knowledge with us.